Preparing for your DIY pipe project not only gives you confidence for building, but also makes the process easier, faster, and more enjoyable as a whole. That's why in today's video, I'm going to give you some important info and tips and tricks for preparing for builds. I've broken it up into 3 sections, starting with the tools that you need to build. It's a good idea to think about this now in case you need to buy any of the tools that you don't already have. Now, if you're just building a basic frame, you're just putting conduit together with the maker pipe connectors, you need 4 simple hand tools. You need a marker and tape measure, and this allows you to measure out your conduit cuts and then mark them with a Sharpie, or I like to use an Expo marker because if you make a mistake or something, you can easily wipe it off, and that really helps when you're building and just saves you from having a bunch of random marks on the pipes in your build. That's what you need to mark the cuts. And then you need a cutter. Now, we like to use the handheld pipe cutter. We have them on our site. You can also get them at Lowe's and Home Depot and places like that. It's great because you don't need any electricity. It's just a hand tool. We have a whole video on how to use this, which I'll link down below. But it's also great because it has a deburring tool built in. So if you need to, deburr the conduit ends in your build, then you'll want a deburring tool, and this cutter has it built in. If you don't use this cutter, then you'll have to, use a metal file or something else. We also have a video on how to deburr conduit that'll also be linked down below. So you need a tape measure to measure your cuts, a marker to mark the cuts, and then you need a cutter to cut your conduit. And like I said, this works great. It's just a simple handheld tool, but you can also opt for a electric power tool if you want to. You can use a portable bandsaw. We have a review of this one on the channel. We like to use this if we're building a lot, need to make a ton of cuts, or if we're working within a time constraint. This makes it so much faster and works really great. So definitely check out that video or that tool if you need something like that. But you don't need it. It's not necessary. It's just, kind of a specialty thing, and really helps if you're on a time crunch, like I said, or if you just need to make a lot of cuts in a short amount of time. But other than that, to actually build the connectors and assemble the connectors, you only need one simple hand tool, a 5mm Allen key. And just like the cutter, you can use this simple tool. It's really basic, really cheap. You might even have some of these laying around. And you can also opt for different versions of a 5mm Allen key. You can get a T handle. Some of these have specialty ends, like this one is a ball end, which helps if you're working at a specific angle and need to get in there and tighten it. You can also get a shorter T handle. There's ratchet bits, and you can use a power tool, but we don't recommend it. It's really easy to strip the bolts with a power hex bit. But the ratchet works great. The 5mm simple Allen key is great, or any of the T handles and things, which again we have on our site, but you can also get locally, or you might already have some. But for basic building, like I said, to just put conduit together and assemble the connectors, those are the 4 tools that you need. But you also want to consider other things in your build and other tools that you might need. For example, if you plan to incorporate bends in your build, then you're going to need to get a conduit bender. And this is another item, another tool that you can get locally at Home Depot and Lowe's and places like that. And if you need to know how to use this, we have a full video on how to bend conduit for beginners, but check that out. But it's just a tool that you want to keep in mind if that's something that you want to incorporate in your build. And along with that, there might be some accessories that you need some specialty tools for. For example, if you have a desktop or shelves that you're securing to a conduit frame, and you're going to be attaching one-hole straps and securing the material with one-hole straps, you're going to need a screwdriver or a power drill in order to screw the one-hole straps into your material. So you just kind of want to think about what accessories are you using, are you attaching surfaces, that kind of thing, and then, think about the tools that you'll need for those different processes. Next, it's time to think about the other materials and accessories that you might need for your project. If you haven't already, it's a good idea to make a list of everything that you need, especially if you have to buy tools, accessories, materials, and all kinds of things. Trust me, you don't want to get halfway through a build and realize that you don't have a material or an accessory or even a tool. It's a really bad feeling, and it causes you to have to go all the way back to the hardware or home improvement store, which just brings your whole project to a halt. So if you're getting a lot of stuff, or even if you're just getting a few things, it's a good idea to start making a list. Now, besides the tools and the connectors that you've probably already gotten at this point, you're going to need the EMT conduit. Now, this is electrical conduit. You can find it in the electrical aisle of places like Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, and stores like that. You can find it in either 5 or 10-foot lengths, depending on the size. And like I said, it's commonly available at those stores. You can also find it in electrical supply places close to you. Now, the good thing about that is you might find they have bulk pricing for a large quantity as opposed to just getting an individual stick at Home Depot or Lowe's. And you also can find different colored conduit other than the standard silver. We've used red conduit in builds in the past for Saunders Machine Works, which is really cool. So you might want to check with local electrical supply places as well as your local hardware and home stores. Now, besides conduit, you might need other materials, whether it be wood for a desktop or shelves. Maybe it's plastic that you're getting, and it could also be other conduit accessories that are made for electricians that you might be using for a DIY build. Common ones like conduit hanger straps, 2-hole straps, and 1-hole straps if you didn't get them from us. Those are things that you want to go ahead and make note of, and you're already in the aisle getting conduit, and you can just go ahead and pick those up as well while you're in the store. At this point too, it's also a good idea to think about other accessories that you can't get from us or you can't even get locally. And maybe it's greenhouse plastic, maybe it's a certain kind of tarp that's specific to your deck for a canopy, whatever it may be. It's a good idea to go ahead and get those things on order if you're waiting on connectors from us, or even if you're just waiting to build in general because you need those things. It's a good idea to just go ahead and figure those out and order them so you have them on hand when it's time to build. Now that you've got your tools, your materials, your accessories, maybe even your connectors have arrived at this point, you're ready to build. How do you actually prepare to work on your project? One of the best things I can recommend is to have a clear space, an empty space to work in. You don't want to have a bunch of clutter around that just gets in the way. It's a good idea to just clear out a work area. And because the tools that we looked at earlier, those 4 simple hand tools that you need to build, you don't need electricity, so you can build in your garage, on the ground, you can work on a workbench if you have one, on a kitchen table, in your living room. Really anywhere that you have space to build, you can because of those 4 simple non-powered hand tools. Next, I would recommend to get familiar with the parts. If you already have the connectors on hand, I'd recommend to go ahead and get them out and start laying them out on a table. This helps you get familiar with the connectors and just see how they go together. So when you're actually working on your project, you can look and just grab the one you need and just keep going, and it makes the whole process faster. As opposed to, having to sit down at your computer, watch a video, and all that kind of stuff to figure out what you need to do. You can just get familiar ahead of time and have that knowledge going into the build. It just makes it that much smoother. You can also go a step further and start assembling connectors. You can just assemble the bolts and nuts loosely and then slide them over the pipes in your build whenever you're ready to work on the project. And if you don't have your connectors on hand, you can just prepare by looking at the videos that we have on the website, on the product pages, as well as the photos that we have there, and you can see how they're assembled and get an idea in that way. While you're waiting on your parts, you can go ahead and cut your conduit. If you have a plan for your build and you have a cut list, this is great. You can go ahead and cut that conduit, have it waiting for the parts. So whenever they arrive, all you have to do is assemble everything together and it'll go super fast. If you need some help figuring out a cut list and just a plan for your build in general, we have a whole video that guides you how to do that step by step. It'll be linked down below if you want to check it out. That about sums it up. You're ready to build, and I have the utmost confidence in you. You've got this. If you have any questions or need any help while you're building, don't hesitate to reach out. And if you're interested, check out our videos that we've done on tips and tricks for building. That'll make your project go even faster. Thanks everybody for watching, and happy building.